I don't get paid for work. And this like, Papa, but I see work, that I said, no, Cedric. Literally, the reason I can do what I do is because of my thinking.
Oh, so basically thinking through. Okay, what if you would just be an investor or a new CEO? What would you cut?
Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs, Cris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmermann, discuss timeless principles of success, significance, and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to Get Your House in Order, the podcast where I talk with my brother, Cris, about today strategy. One of my favorite topics, strategy, is the shortcut. Why thinking beats hustle every time. Now, we live in an Instagram world where we see a lot of hustle. And if you kind of know Cris, and if you kind of follow him along, you see a lot of hustle from the outside. But there's actually, you always carry your black book with you, your thinking book. And for people who only listen to the audio, it's a big moleskin book. You have like 30 or 50 of them at home, where you basically, with everything, whenever you meet somebody, whenever you talk, whenever you have some time off, you actually are thinking through certain things. So in this episode, I want to actually give us a definition of strategic thinking and of thinking in strategy in general. But because I think it's one of the most important skills that we need to develop. Now, there is so much we can automate with AI these days. There's so much we can actually get done through others. But thinking is a skill that we need to develop. So Cris, kind of give us an introduction to why strategy matters for you. What is the difference between kind of hustle and really slowing down to think?
As you were just giving this introduction, I actually just thought of a conversation I had last week with my son, Cedric, and he was coming home from school, and he was complaining a little bit on how he had to sit there all day, listen to teachers, and he wants to actually do some things. And because he sees so much business stuff around, he actually also wants to make some money. And we had this great father-son conversation about how you need to go to school and how it's very important to develop your brain. And I kind of, in a short snippet, I kind of explained to him that the education of the mind is actually the greatest capital you can develop in a persona. And I kind of told him, Cedric, I fly around the world and I sit with people, and the reason they want to engage, the reason they want to hear me speak, the reason they want me to help them on some of their business, family setup, legacy, is because I've done a lot of thinking. And it's not because I'm the smartest person in the world. It's not because I have it's not because I have the highest IQ. But I really have developed a thinking pattern. And you already mentioned it at the beginnings that I think with pen and paper. And I'm very old school. I know we live in a very technologized world where everyone sits behind computers. I don't like the computer. I really don't spend time behind that computer. I don't type emails. I don't do any of that. But I take a lot of time making notes and thinking. That's why, by the way, I love flying. Not for the flying. Flying is terrible, okay? Is only the long distance flights when you can make a bed and sleep nicely. That's when it's nice. But the reason I like it is because literally I've had some $1 million ideas sitting over the Atlantic Ocean, just in a quiet moment with pen and I always carry a pen as well, not just the paper, and just do some strategic thinking, big picture, some to-dos, some strategy, and I think you've got a whole definition that we're going to walk through. But in short, what I told Cedric is that Cedric, I get paid. Even though I'm not on the paywall, but I said I get paid for thinking. Yeah. I don't get paid for work, and this like, Papa, but I see work. I said no, Cedric. Literally, the reason I can do what I do is because of my thinking, not because of anything. Let's say manual that I do.
Well, everything we marvel at and everything we see was thought out first. was designed and basically in the head before it actually was designed on paper or was designed in a factory or designed in a building. And so really this art of really knowing how to think strategically. And so, we have a program at Medici called the Self-Managing Business Program, where we actually learn, how Cosimo de Medici set up his bank as a self-managing bank so that he could actually kind of be involved in all the different aspects of society that can have a great impact and create a great legacy. It only worked because he had a self-managing business. And sometimes the idea is then, so if I have a self-managing business, I can be on the beach and drink pina colada all day. And it's like, no, that is not what a self-managing business is. It's not a self-leading business where you just have a board position and maybe once a quarter you have a board meeting. A self-managing business is that you are outside of the daily operations. So that you can really work on the business rather than in the business, which is number one, kind of your job description is now strategy, is now actually to slow down in order to speed up. Now, the first level, and that's why it's so difficult to make this shift, because the first level, if you have kind of bootstrapped your own business, is that you need a hustle. There's no way around really kicking things, opening doors, making things, starting momentum. It's like pushing things up a steep hill in the beginning. You need to work. Anybody who tells you something else has never built a real business. It's just it's work. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. But at some point, basically, you are the bottleneck if your work, your hustle actually defines your outcome. And that's where you have to shift, and that's where you have to get people in who actually, through the right systems, the right delegation, the right people, can really do kind of the operations so that you can start strategically think through all the different aspects in your business, and you work on the business rather than in the business.
I actually have a story that just comes to mind. I was sitting in the sauna a few. Well, actually, it wasn't a few months ago. It was last year. I was sitting in a sauna, which is one of my thinking spots. So next to airplanes, I love going when I'm home. I go every evening to the gym. I do some physical exercise, and then I love my sauna. I love because it's like, again, there's no technology, there's no communication. It's just sitting there, sweating a bit, jumping into the ice bath, and even some of my best thinking has happened in the sauna, and some good conversations. Anyhow, what I wanted to say is that I was sitting there in the sauna, and it's connected to the gym, so there are a bunch of other guys in the sauna as well. And so I started talking with a British freelancer who talked to me a little bit about his business. He's not a business owner. He doesn't own, but he's a freelancer. And so we had this conversation, and it seemed like he's also a little bit stressed out. He was also craving the sauna, kind of some off time, and he was a hustler. I could hear it from the way he was explaining his lifestyle. Anyhow, we had a nice conversation. We met, I think it was a week or 10 days later again, and in a sense we picked up the conversation. Anyhow, he found out kind of that I've built a lot of companies, and I've done some business development consulting and stuff. And so the story actually goes that a few weeks later, there's a cafeteria in the gym as well, and he literally he grabbed me when he saw me coming in. It was almost like he was waiting for me to show up at the gym, because I go every evening kind of at the same time. And he grabbed me and he pulled me before I wanted to do my exercise. He pulled me over and he asked me to sit down, and he just wanted to, in a sense, kind of talk to me about his business. And I'll give you this just the short run. He was a hustler. But basically he had 10 clients. And we probably only sat there for let's say 40 minutes. We sat there for 40 minutes, and he kind of explained to me his basic setup, 10 clients, what he does for them, how big the accounts. He gave me a rough draft of the numbers, and to make a long kind of let's say coaching short, when he explained his 10 customers, I kind of applied very quickly the 80-20 rule, which, there are many variations on how you can explain that. But I basically said, at the moment, what you're doing is you're treating your 10 customers all the same. And that means whether they are and which you shouldn't do. You should make a distinction of, who is really a customer that can take your business to the next level. And so to cut it short, we narrowed it down. From the 10 customers that he had, there were basically 2 that he could develop his whole business, and I really tried to coach him into more of a business owner mentality than a freelancer mentality, is that he could build his core, monthly income business around 2 customers. And almost like push aside some of this other hustle thing that he was doing. It's a longer explanation. But funny enough, a few months later, again we sat together, and he shared in the sauna, and he shared with me how really this thought of not treating everyone equal, but really taking a step back and looking at your customer base. Where can you increase your revenue, like your business? It just made a huge difference. And for me, this is a prime example of we can be so busy with all our to-dos, with all our stuff that we're doing, is that we don't take this time to step back, look at it, and should we treat everyone the same? Is every customer as valuable? Or should we perhaps cut a few off in order to, kind of create a different kind of offer and do better business?
Yeah. So we are going to go into a definition. Before, I want to just mention, because this is a legit podcast, so we need a study. So Harvard Business Review surveyed 10,000 leaders and showed that 97%, so almost 100%, rank strategic thinking as the number 1 most important leadership behavior. The number 1 most important leadership behavior is strategic thinking. And most of us have not been trained in how to do this. So if this is the most important leadership behavior, why have we not taken any class on that?
Philip, there's actually only one book that comes to my mind that kind of just on the topic of thinking. And this is a book by John Maxwell, which is called Thinking for a Change. Okay, and I would recommend this to everyone. It's not just a pure just on the business side. It's really more a leadership book, but it's a brilliant book just about thinking. And they're different. There's reflective thinking. There's strategic thinking. There's team thinking. So he kind of makes out a whole bunch of categories. But everyone knows I'm a ferocious reader. I love to read and study, but it's crazy. Like also, if I think back, I haven't read many books on how to think. I'm obviously doing some thinking while I'm reading, but even this topic, there's no course at university that teaches you to think. There's no books that are out there. Perhaps there are. I haven't come across them.
I got my doctorate in strategic leadership, so I read a lot of books on strategy. But the interesting thing is that most of them are talking about big company, corporate culture strategy. And what is with a kind of small, medium-sized family business, there is not a lot out there. So that's why I want to give us a kind of a definition. I taught a class on strategic thinking just a few weeks ago, and I kind of shared that my definition of strategic thinking and thought we'll unpack it. So strategic thinking means, number 1, defining your reality. That's step number 1. And we might just want to take it one step at a time. Defining our current reality. There's a great quote that the first responsibility of a leader is to actually define reality. Where are we? What is status quo? And often as leaders, we are living in a delusional world because we don't want to face reality.
Well, back to my sauna connection here, my British guy. So the first thing is that when I sat down with him, so I said, okay, so how many customers, how much revenue, how much work, how many hours. So I did basically a very quick assessment. It's like, it takes me 5 minutes. And people are often surprised, how can you assess a business that quickly? Well, because there are some, key performance indicators. And so I can go through it. I'm often surprised how some business guys don't know their numbers. It's like, well, what was your revenue last month?
No, you get stories. You get good stories.
Yeah,
and intuitions.
Oh no, we're doing good. We're doing good. We're not doing well. It's like, well, please give me some numbers here. Anyway, but the first one definitely is you need to have a look at reality, and that's where there's a level of assessment. And let's say also you need to detach it from your emotions.
Yeah.
So very much business guys, we get kind of into this emotional thing, our dreams, our vision, blah blah blah. But assessment, the reality check is really without emotions. Where are we? How many customers? How much revenue? How many employees? What's monthly income? What's payroll and so forth.
A great question to ask is actually if you would kind of be just taking over your own business and have all the knowledge, but you're a new CEO of your own business, what changes would you immediately do? And there are a few things that immediately come to mind. You're like, oh, I need to let go of that person. You haven't done that because you have a history and their emotional attachment to that. You know, oh, we need to cut that product because it's not bringing enough revenue. Oh, well, we spent months creating it. It looks so nice. My wife actually, that's the favorite thing about our business is this product. So basically thinking through, okay, what if you would just be an investor or a new CEO, what would you cut? What emotionally would you kind of...
Philip, you're saying that because our lens, because we have the investor lens, we invest into companies, we invest into projects. That's why we know what to look for. But a lot of business owners, they've not bought companies. They may have bought some stocks, but they haven't bought companies. And so that's where almost like I send you off on a course of investing or private equity. How do you do private equity investments? How many books have you read on that topic? Well, you find out that there are just some key metrics for every business, okay? And most business families, they get so much into their business, and it's more, it's people and, products. And so the step back, looking at it through the investor lens is actually a strategic thinking tool.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's also you really, when you do this, you can assess where you actually have potential for leverage. So I love when we look at a business, I love to check out reality, not because I want to downplay what is happening to get the price down, but to actually see, if we make this change, and this change, I know we can actually, quadruple the revenue over a few years, because the reality is that this is how it has been working. So reality is number one. We clearly need to define reality. Number two is clearly articulate where you want to end up. You need to know what is actually, when you work on a strategic plan for any department, for any, let it be a marketing piece, let it be a sales piece, let it be a team piece, whatever it is, you know, first, okay, where are we? And then where do we want to go? It's so simple, and still so many, it gets fuzzy.
Well, and so this is the next question after taking the assessment is you need to know where someone wants to go. Now, and this is really also very personal. It's like every business owner decides his own destiny. It's like, do you want to build a unicorn? You want to have 10 million of revenue? You want to have 100 million? Or, if you have 500,000, kind of, as your freelancer kind of guy here, then you're happy. Well, that's you up for you to define. And the reason you need to do that, because then you reverse engineer, and we're going to talk about that. But you reverse engineer. If your plan, let's say, is 10 million revenue within the next 2-3 years, then you need to. There are things you have to do that you need to put in place in order to get to that goal, which are different than when you're looking for, let's say, a 4 or 5 million revenue goal. Okay, so that's why this is very clear. And again, I'm surprised how many people are just very fuzzy. This should be like I even had some there's some guys who do some leadership training. They basically say every day you need to write down your goals. You need to have them so visible in front of you that every day okay, I want to have 100 customers. I want to have 1 million revenue this month. Whatever the numbers is. But I know some guys who actually literally in the morning the first thing they do is they pin it on paper. What is my goal? Because life gets difficult, business gets difficult. We all get into the hustle mode, emails, phone calls, blah, blah, blah. And we forget, what are we actually working on? And if that is unclear for you as the business leader, then it's also unclear for your team. And we can talk more about that. But the reason we need thinking time is also to give direction to our organization.
Well, there's almost like a universal conspiracy that once you define where you want to go, there's almost like your subconscious goes to work. Apart from any other step. Once you know really what you want, it seems like things start to align, and you start to see patterns in the world, conversations, and that this is one puzzle piece that comes
and
together.
It's much easier to say no. It's much easier if you know where you're going, and you get an offer, a new customer wants this or that, you can say clearly no.
Yeah.
This is not where I want to go.
Okay, so strategic thinking means define, number one, your current reality. Number two, clearly articulating where you want to end up. And then number three, mapping the smartest path to get there. Mapping the smartest path to get there. Now, I think it's almost 25 years ago, I was invited to speak in Romania, Sighișoara. I flew to Sighișoara, to Bucharest, and then drove to Sighișoara and spoke there at an event. And I remember it was I was supposed to speak there in the morning. They basically send a taxi for me to pick up. They picked me up from the place I was staying and drive me there. And I didn't understand a word. They were all in Romanian. The taxi driver couldn't speak a word of English. But basically, they had given me the address and said, no, don't worry about anything. The taxi driver will exactly, he does that all the time for us.
Well, and how big is the place? I mean, how big can the Sighișoara be?
Yeah. So he basically he basically took me to a place, and I got out of the car. He left, and then I looked up because I was so confident, and I realized, where in the world am I, and where in the world should I go? And so being a leader, I just started walking. Because I knew I looked for this venue, when one house of the, well, after like 15, 20 minutes, and it was in the summer, so it was hot. I was starting to sweat, and I was like, this is crazy. Then I saw another taxi, so I pulled down the taxi, jumped on the street and stopped the taxi and kind of showed them the address where I need to go. And
they took you back.
And they took me back to exactly the same spot. And I'm like, I'm not getting out of this taxi. I'm not leaving. I'm like, this is not here. Where is it? And then he basically shows me there was an alley, kind of a small path into the venue. And that's when I realized, your direction.
You need to learn Romanian.
Your direction, not your intention, actually gets you to your destination. So I had all the intention in the world to actually get to the venue. I had all the intention. I was ready. I had my notes. I was prepared to give a speech to thousands. But basically, my intention didn't get me there. The right direction does, and that's where mapping out. Then basically, where do I want to go, and how do I get there? What are the ways? Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, this is one of the exercises that I do constantly in my black notebook. Is I just in a sense I call it a brain dump. If you have a goal that you want to achieve, basically one of my exercises is that I just write down as many things as I can think of in the moment. Let's say 20, 25 different things. How could I achieve this goal? And it's funny is that the first, let's say, 10 points are quite obvious. It's what I'm already doing. But it's kind of the last 10 points on my list that because I was so much in the hustle, that I didn't really think about some of these other ways. And so that's where actually this thinking space for me is so important. Is we need time to reflect, we need time to think and process. And the best business leaders I know, man, this is what they do. They've moved out of the hustle. I think you said it right at the beginning, Philip. In order to start a company and blah, you need to hustle. Obviously, but then really, then the successful people, they think about their shit. It's like they think about strategy. But that's where we all get. Our brain is also. I always call it. We have a dinosaur brain, which means which is very lame and it's fear based. There's danger out in the world. We need to hide in the cave. We human beings have been around for some time, and so in order to innovate, in order to strategize. Really, we need to get out of our dinosaur brain and just the simple path that we've always been walking as humanity. I mean, all kinds of innovation in the world has only happened because some people have done some good thinking and have asked some good questions. And so also, actually, part of my thing that I do is also I write down questions almost, for myself. It's like, not just in an interview, but or when I do some, consulting or something, but really just, where do I need to, what are the questions that lead me to where I want to go?
Yeah. Very important, mapping out really what is the smartest path. Now, I want to turn to the. I have a last piece and then an add-on, basically on the definition. But this piece is actually that is left out in a lot of definitions, and I think you and I kind of are known for that. But I really want that people get this, because I have met some people who talk to me, oh, I'm a strategist, and I call myself a strategist, but whenever I hear somebody else calling themselves a strategist, I'm like, oh, you're just not getting things done. You want to hide behind the boardroom,
Yeah, that's right.
and just do some thinking, and then think magically things happen. So here's the definition. Strategic thinking means defining your current reality, clearly articulating where you want to end up, mapping the smartest path to get there, and now the most important, committing to massive action that is required. To actually commit to massive action. Because all the thinking in the world doesn't help anything if it stops there, and if you not really kind of look at all the resources that you need to get this strategy that you just mapped out to actually get it done. And that's where we often fall short.
Yeah, so with my exercise that I just outlined, where I put down the 25 things that I could do in order to achieve my goal, is that basically at the end of the exercise, I have to circle 3 things that I now really, go at. And most of the time, out of the 3, there's even a top 1 where the massive action really is required. And and then you need to make some phone calls, and you kick up some dust and send out some emails or whatever in order to get moving. Yeah.
Yeah, and the good thing is to actually, so that's kind of a habit whenever I'm done with that exercise, to immediately initiate one thing, to actually delegate one thing to the team or write one email to just get the ball moving, because it sometimes it's so nice, okay, we've done some thinking, but really this massive action. And also as business owners, we really need to think through what resources are we giving for this strategy to be actually implemented. And for this plan to be actually executed, because sometimes we want to do kind of the pie in the sky nice things, but we are not willing to put down the money to our team to approve the budgets, to actually give the authority to say, okay, let's make this happen, because it will not really work. So it needs massive action, and if we basically we never know. Sometimes the right strategy cannot be implemented correctly because you don't have massive action, and then you think you've done wrong thinking, and the strategy was wrong, but actually the strategy was right if you have given it your 100%. And that's also why I see, in our world, there are no black and white answers. Everything is it good or better, or is it bad or worse? If it would be black and white and an easy decision, basically everybody can do that. You can pay somebody $50 to come up and think straight, and with AI, you just put it in an AI and then they can give you an answer. But in our case, a lot of the time, the strategy, the map, we don't know if this is the best way. It's I call it, it's like poker. You think it's a good hand. Let's see. Let's go all in and find out if it really matters. And sometimes you can lose, even though it was the right calculation, because some stupid guy just got lucky with his hand on the last card. But basically, that's where I then sense that there's hesitation in the massive action. So you are not 100% clear on the strategy or 100% sold, because it's not a black and white kind of a thing, like a lot of things. And then you basically are a little hesitant, and you never find out if your strategy actually worked. Not because of the strategy, but actually because of the massive action that is required in the implementation. So the last thing, and we end on this, so that's kind of the definition. And then basically the last thing I say is, while adapting along the way to changing circumstances. Okay, because life, back in the day, we could do a 5-year strategic plan and we were good to go. And now we are back to months, sometimes even weeks, where we have to adapt our strategies, because the world is changing like it has never changed before in history. And that's why this thinking skill is the most important thing we need as business owners.
Yeah, so a practical tip from my side is you need to block out of your calendar thinking time. And I have days where this is basically the only thing that I have on my agenda. No phone calls, no meetings, nothing, no writing projects. Other than me, good coffee. I find a location and I spend a day. Walk through the city. It's not just thinking on my ass. Kind of sitting down. It's also kind of some of the thinking is also while we move, and block that in your calendar. I think that's we put all kinds of put all kinds of stuff in our calendar. Our calendars never are empty. They're always full. But are they also full with you taking time off? And what I've myself been surprised many times is that where actually I thought I don't have time for a day without meetings, is actually when I do a day without meetings, then I come out of this with much more clarity, focus, good direction. And then if you have a team, you can give better leadership. You can get your army kind of rightly positioned. You can attack on a new front. And so this is where it also in a sense takes discipline. You need to push all stuff away. I mean, in many ways, success is created by getting stuff out of your calendar. That you're just being busy. Busyness doesn't create success, and so that will be a very practical tip here from my side.
Yes, so I hope after listening or watching, you're going to take some time to think. Now, I want to give you a gift. It's actually only for our people who are part of our coaching program, but I've put together a strategy framework, actually where I talk through this definition in more depth, but then actually give you a template that you can use every time you work on one aspect of a strategy, one thing you want to think through. And it's an easy template you can use every time. If you just email us at coaching@medicilegacy.com, medicilegacy.com, and just ask for the strategy framework. It's a beautiful designed 25 page or something like that document that will actually then give you a blueprint on when you sit down in the coffee shop that you can work through. A great important piece when it comes to get your house in order, and we'll hear and see each other in the next episode.